There was a boy once, not a ghost, not a problem, just a boy Noah. He was born whole, curious, with a laugh that made strangers turn around. He didn't ask for anything special, just connection, just safety, just to be held when the storms came. But the world, it answered with silence. His mother absent, not physically, but emotionally, like she lived behind frosted glass. His father present, but harsh, not with fists, but with disappointment sharp enough to scar. Noah learned early how to shrink himself, how to take up less space. He memorized moods like a language, learned to read the air before he entered a room, when to smile, when to vanish, when to pretend it didn't hurt. And at first, it was just pretending, but somewhere along the way, the act became real, the mask fused to the skin. And the boy inside, he started to forget how it felt to be seen. What broke Noah wasn't just the neglect. It was the gaslight, the smiles at church, the photos on birthdays, the way everyone acted like everything was fine, when inside, it was a quiet war. He wasn't allowed to name it. So the pain had to find another way out. Insomnia, nightmares, sudden rage he couldn't explain. A stomach that knotted at the sound of footsteps. And worst of all, that feeling that he was somehow wrong. You see, trauma doesn't just live in memory. It makes a home in the nervous system. It rewires your sense of safety, of love, of self. And Noah, he was still kind, still funny. But inside, he was slowly fracturing. He became what the world rewarded, likable, helpful, always available. He laughed at jokes that hurt. He said yes when he wanted to scream no. He shape-shifted into everyone's expectations until there was nothing left underneath, just echoes. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Noah became the king of avoidance. But no mask can hide the truth forever. It started subtle. He'd walk into a room and forget why he was there. He'd stare at his reflection, wondering if the man looking back was real. He called it burnout, called it stress, but deep down, something older was waking up. Something buried. He tried to explain it once to a friend over coffee. Said he felt like he was watching his life through glass. Like he was underwater, screaming, and no one could hear. His friend nodded politely. Changed the subject, so Noah stopped trying. And that's the cruel thing about unresolved pain. It doesn't go away when ignored. It shapeshifts. It becomes chronic tension, a tightness in the chest, an inability to rest even in silence. He started having conversations with himself. Not just idle thoughts, full arguments, debates with voices in his head that didn't sound like him. He stopped trusting his own memory, lost time, scribbled ideas into notebooks with no context, convinced it all meant something. He called it intuition, called it awakening, but the truth, his mind was begging for order, for meaning, for release. The trauma he'd buried was now blooming like mold in the dark. Symbols everywhere. Patterns in car license plates, secret messages in songs. He thought he was decoding the universe. But really, he was decoding himself, trying to make sense of a childhood no one ever validated. You see, madness isn't chaos. It's the soul's demand to be heard after years of silence. It's not insanity, it's exhaustion. And when the mind is tired of carrying the lie, it cracks not because it's weak, but because it's been strong for too damn long. Noah didn't fall apart in one night. It was a slow unraveling. The kind that's invisible to everyone else, but he knew, he felt it. That sense of slipping. That hollow behind the eyes. He tried therapy. Told them he didn't feel real anymore. That sometimes he'd forget how to be human. They gave him a diagnosis. He nodded, took the meds. But deep down, he knew this wasn't chemical. It was spiritual. An ache in his soul, not just his brain. And that's where the world gets it wrong. It wants tidy labels, PTSD, depression, dissociation, but those are just signposts. They don't tell you about the nights Noah sat on the bathroom floor, shaking, whispering apologies to no one. They don't explain why mirrors felt like portals, or why certain songs made him cry without knowing why. Because trauma isn't just an event, it's what happens inside you afterward. It's how the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. It's how the child you once were keeps screaming inside the adult you pretend to be. Noah began writing, not to heal. He didn't believe in healing yet. Just to survive. The pages were chaotic, words crossed out, rewritten, circled. One phrase kept showing up again and again, like a haunting. Something happened to me. That sentence wasn't a revelation. It was a rebellion. A refusal to keep pretending. He started grieving. Not just for what was done to him, but for everything he never got. The bedtime stories, the safe hugs, the words "I see you." He grieved the false self. The years spent playing a role, the friendships built on performance, the relationships shaped by fear. Carl Jung said, the shadow is not evil. It's just unloved, and Noah's shadow. It was tired of being denied, so it roared, not to destroy him, but to wake him up. Madness, he learned, wasn't the end. It was the invitation, the breaking of the old skin, the crumbling of everything fake, the beginning of something true. He wasn't healed, but he was honest. And that maybe for the first time felt like hope. Noah returned to therapy, but this time, he left the mask at the door. He didn't try to sound insightful, didn't quote philosophy, didn't hide behind humor. He just cried. He cried for the boy who learned to stay quiet to survive. For the man who became everyone's hero, but never his own. For the years he spent running from a pain that only wanted to be witnessed. And it wasn't pretty. Healing never is. It's not linear, not a checklist. It's messy, primitive, raw. There were days he felt like he was regressing. Like the more he dug into himself, the less he understood. But then there were moments, quiet, fleeting moments when something real emerged. A small sense of safety. A deep breath that didn't hurt. A laugh that came from the gut, not the mask. He started reading again, books that didn't sugarcoat pain. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert A. Johnson. The Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller. And Jung, Always Younger Man and His Symbols. They didn't offer answers, they offered permission. Permission to stop performing, to stop fixing, to just feel. Noah began to understand he wasn't broken, he was buried. And healing wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who he was before the world told him to forget. So he slowed down, stopped trying to get better, started trying to be real. He wrote, walked, screamed into pillows, sat in silence, not the numb kind, but the sacred kind. The kind where truth whispers. He faced his shadow. Not to fight it, but to befriend it. To say, I see you, I hear you, you're part of me. And slowly, Noah began to live differently, not louder, not grander. Just honestly, he no longer chased perfection. He chose presence. He stopped hiding his story. Because the world doesn't need more masks. It needs more people who face their darkness and come back with light. If you feel like you're losing your mind, maybe you're finally hearing it speak. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning, not of madness, but of becoming whole.